Hello, welcome to the annual CACFP training for Victorum Learning Center, January 15th, 2024. I am your presenter, Mr. Lauren Nelson Sr., the Director of Operations for Victorum Learning Center. Today we will go over the required topics of meal pattern requirements, meal counts, claim submission procedures, record-keeping requirements, reimbursement system, and civil rights. Related topics: income eligibility applications, income eligibility master list, daily attendance records, the master list, CACFP budget, CACFP management plan, food procurement procedures, inventory, infant menus, milk requirements, daycare licensing violations, abuse and neglect, hot and cold temperatures, and refrigeration of food. Meal pattern requirements. Infants. Individualized to meet the dietary requirements and developmental stage. This process is based on information from the family/medical professional. Typically, this involves either breast milk or formula in the early stages and introducing infant cereal as the child develops. First foods, which are not combined with others in production, are introduced with the expressed and written permission of the parent, and after the child has experimented with the food under parent/guardian permission. Once the infant has reached 12 months of age, the meal pattern requirements are 1/2 cup milk, 1/4 cup fruit or vegetable, 1/2 ounce grains for breakfast, 1/2 cup milk, 1 ounce protein, 1/8 cup vegetable, 1/8 cup fruit, 1/2 ounce grain for lunch, 1/2 cup milk, 1/2 cup protein, 1/2 cup vegetable, 1/2 cup fruit, 1/2 ounce grain, a combination of 2 for snack. For toddlers, it's 1/2 cup milk, 1/4 cup fruit or vegetable, 1/2 ounce grains for breakfast, 1/2 cup milk, 1 ounce protein, 1/8 cup vegetable, 1/8 cup fruit, 1/2 ounce grain for lunch, 1/2 cup milk, 1/2 ounce protein, 1/2 cup vegetable, 1/2 cup fruit, 1/2 ounce grain, a combination of 2 for snack. For preschool, 3/4 cup milk, 1/2 cup fruit or vegetable, 1/2 ounce grains, 3/4 cup milk, 1 1/2 ounce protein, 1/4 cup vegetable, 1/4 cup fruit, 1/2 ounce grain for lunch, 1/2 cup milk, 1/2 ounce protein, 1/2 cup vegetable, 1/2 cup fruit, 1/2 ounce grain, a combination of 2 for snack. For school age, 1 cup milk, 1/2 cup fruit or vegetable, 1 ounce grains for breakfast, 1 cup milk, 2 ounce protein, 1/2 cup vegetable, 1/4 cup fruit, 1 ounce grain for lunch, 1 cup milk, 1/2 ounce protein, 3/4 cup vegetable, 3/4 cup fruit, 1/2 ounce grain, a combination of 2 for snack. Meal counts. Meal counts are legal documents created by staff at the point of service to accurately account for meals served to qualified participants in the CACFP. These meal counts are noted at all meal times when the child is served their meal. On the first of the following month, these meal counts are scanned and sent to me for approval.
Welcome to the Point of Service Meal Count Refresher Training for Child Care Centers participating in the CACFP. The objectives of this webinar are to review point of service in the CACFP, review how to record daily meal counts, and identify key reminders and best practices. Point of service. The definition of point of service is the point at which the participants have been served all the required food components for a specific meal type, such as breakfast, lunch, snack, or supper, and before the participant leaves the table. Agencies who participate in the CACFP are reimbursed for the number of meals and snacks they serve to their CACFP enrolled children each day. Point of service meal counts is the way to count meals for reimbursement. The meal counts must be recorded at the time each meal or snack is served. Staff are not allowed to pre-record counts before the meal is served. Forecasting which children will be served is not acceptable. Staff are not allowed to wait until the end of the day either, because that is no longer point of service. Recalling, relying on your memory, is also not acceptable. Point of service is only acceptable when recorded at the point the meal was served. Now let's watch a quick video clip on point of service. Point of service can be done manually or kept through an electronic system. If an agency is transferring manual point of service to an electronic system, then they have to keep the original document, that paper copy.
In addition, you must record point of service, POS. Point of service is a daily count of the number of meals served to enrolled children, taken at the time of service. It is documented once the child receives all of the meal components, including the milk component of a reimbursable meal. It must be recorded and maintained for 3 years, plus the current year, by all participating CACFP providers. A CACFP reviewer will ask for these records during a review.
Point of service and attendance must be separate. Your point of service, which is your check sheet that the children did receive a reimbursable meal, cannot count as attendance.
Monthly point of service numbers are reported so providers can receive reimbursements for their meals. Furthermore, water must be available during the meal service and throughout the day for all enrolled children.
Now that we watched a quick video clip on point of service, let's take a closer look on how to count meals in the Child and Adult Care Food Program. After serving a child a meal that meets CACFP meal pattern requirements, including milk, the program needs to mark off that the child did receive a meal. For example, Chris has received a reimbursable lunch with all food components. The teacher finds Chris's name on the point of service record, then finds the correct meal type and marks off on the meal count record that they have received a reimbursable lunch. This is how to conduct point of service in the CACFP. It is important to have a system that works for your program and to train all your teachers and staff to complete the point of service correctly. Each tally mark represents a federal reimbursement. True or false? Child care centers must maintain both daily attendance and point of service meal counts. It's true. Child care centers must maintain daily attendance and point of service meal counts. Records need to be maintained for 4 years. That's 3 years plus the current year. Records must be available on site during the compliance reviews. Here's another example of a point of service record for one meal type. In this example, it is lunch. Use check marks or other notations to show which children receive a reimbursable meal. Be mindful of check marks and X's. Agencies should have a system to identify a present and an absent for a meal. It is also recommended not to leave a box blank for the meal count. Either use an X or dash to indicate that the meal was not served. As per compliance reviews, leaving it blank creates confusion, and sometimes the staff may think they missed checking it off and may check it off. Whatever you do, please make sure it is legible and it's consistent. This form allows staff to tally the total number of meals for each child. It is recommended to use a coding system for each child eligibility level. Eligibility codes represent whether that child is eligible for free, reduced, or paid meals. Income eligibility information is confidential, so setting up a code for each category is needed. Only staff who determine eligibility and consolidate claims should know a child's eligibility. It is best practice to only add the eligibility codes at the end of the week as staff tally and cross-check point of service records. Even though there are codes, it's still best practice to keep this information safe. Agencies should have a system in place to complete point of service and have their staff trained on the system. Once a system is established, it is important to observe employees taking point of service for accuracy. This form includes attendance to minimize paperwork, but remember, you cannot use attendance as point of service. Agencies should still keep a separate attendance. The attendance on a point of service sheet serves as a backup tool to help with accountability. Remember, a child cannot be served a meal if they are not in attendance. Also, a child in attendance may not always receive a meal due to illness or the parent brings in lunch, etc. Either way, these children should not be marked or claimed. Customizable sample forms are available to download from the Mars Resource Center. These sheets can be organized differently based on your center size, classroom divisions, and any other organizational structures an agency may have. For field trips, the point of service record should be taken on the field trip and completed at the time the meal is served, not as they leave the center. Child care centers have to email their specialists about any field trips or off-site operations, and then we will communicate that information to the compliance team. Let's look at another example. Take a look at how these names are listed. Do you see any inconsistencies? All of the names are not all listed in the same way, such as last name and first name. Johnny Brooks, Simone Harper, and Alicia Mendez do not have their names listed in the same way as the others. This could cause confusion when counting and consolidating meals. To stay consistent, stick to one system and train your staff on the system. Another problem with this point of service record is that you have to be careful on using overt identification to maintain confidentiality. You shouldn't use codes as FRP on point of service records. Instead, use ABC or 123. An agency can also use color or highlighting or grouping on the point of service record to help with the meal count consolidation. In this example, all the A's are highlighted. Agencies who have infants should also conduct point of service for infant meals as well. For infants, they should be on their own individual feeding schedules, but the process is similar. Here's an example of a point of service meal chart for one infant. The agency will record a meal or snack when the program supplies all the components or if the parent garden supplies only one component. Agencies can also be reimbursed for breast milk. For more information on infant point of service, please contact your program specialist. Now that we have learned how to correctly complete point of service, the next step is to consolidate or add all together the meal counts. It is best practice to do this daily or weekly and to have another staff member check and verify that the numbers are correct. Counting many check marks can be taxing. If any of the numbers are incorrect and claimed, it may lead to meals being disallowed and a corrective action. Let's walk through how to count these numbers. Remember, a participant must have a check for attendance and for a meal for it to count toward your daily meal totals and weekly meal totals. All right, first things first, calculate the daily attendance for each day. This is done by finding the attendance column next to the day of the week you're working on and adding up the check marks down the column. Place the number of participants present for the day in the space that asks for the daily attendance total. Do not count those absent into this number. Calculate the daily meal totals for each day by adding up the meals served each day of the week. This is done by finding each days of the week column and adding up the check marks down the column. Place the number of meals for the day in the space that asks for the daily meal total. Remember, a participant must have a check mark for attendance and for a meal for it to count into your daily meal totals and weekly meal totals. Total the daily meals received by each participant for the week. This is done by selecting one participant and adding the total number of meals horizontally received on each day. You'll go one by one and add up all the meals horizontally. Total the meal counts by reimbursement category for claim. Use the information in the column entitled Eligibility Category Code. Cross-check your total meals by adding the daily meals across all days. This should be the same as the result of adding the column labeled meal totals. Add the daily attendance to get the weekly attendance. All right. Agencies must ensure fiscal accountability and that the CACFP will operate in accordance with regulatory requirements. To demonstrate program accountability, agencies must document and keep records of point of service correctly. I'm going to ask 3 questions on point of service accountability to make sure everyone feels comfortable. For the first question, the children are eating lunch at the center. The point of service is taken after the tables are cleaned off. Does this satisfy point of service accountability? No, this does not satisfy point of service accountability because the person taking point of service is relying on recall. Point of service is conducted at the time a reimbursement meal or snack is being served. Question 2. During breakfast, a teacher takes point of service at the time her coworker serves the reimbursable meal. However, some of the children wind up not eating their meal. Does this satisfy point of service accountability? Yes, as long as the meal served meets the meal pattern. If a child refuses to eat or eats only a small amount, the meal is still reimbursable. Question number 3. Lunch is being served at the center, and the teacher is using the attendance list to record point of service. Does this satisfy point of service accountability? No. Point of service is conducted at the time a reimbursable meal or snack is being served. Some children who attend the program may not receive a meal for various reasons. Either they were sent home because they were sick, or they brought food from home, or have a doctor's appointment, etc. So no, this does not satisfy point of service accountability. All right, let's talk about some best practices. Point of service records are directly connected to the federal reimbursement. Especially with high staff turnover rate, it is important for consistency and frequent training. Staff should not know the category codes. This information is only for the people who are doing the claim consolidation. Use consistent marking for your attendance and point of service records. Have a system in place and train staff doing point of service. Organize your records. Good organization is one of the best ways to be successful in the CACFP. Consolidate your numbers at the end of the week versus the end of the month. This will allow for fewer errors. It is best practice to also add eligibility codes at the end of the week when consolidating numbers for further safety and confidentiality. Check, check, verify. After the numbers have been consolidated, have another staff member check the numbers for accuracy and verify that the procedure has been done correctly. If these records are not completed correctly, use this opportunity to retrain your staff. Thank you for taking the time to attend this webinar on point of service meal counts in the CACFP. The Office of School and Community Nutrition Programs appreciates your attention during this brief training. Please go back to any sections that may have been confusing and feel free to share with other staff and use in staff training for anyone who is responsible for point of service. If you have any additional questions, contact your program specialists. Thank you.
Approval. Claims review procedures. All claims for meals are reviewed for accuracy using the meal count and attendance sheets recorded in the classroom prior to submitting the information for reimbursement under CACFP guidelines. Information contained in the master list is derived from income eligibility applications and enrollment forms. All data must be verified for accuracy to ensure compliance. This process is completed using the Edit Checks form on the ODE CRRS system. Claim submission procedures. All claims for meal reimbursement begin with edit check completion that is verified eligibility, enrollment, and attendance/participation requirements. Following verification, the claim submission takes place within the CRRS system in which participation data is input. Record-keeping requirements. Record-keeping requirements are very strict and may be reviewed for compliance and accuracy at any time during a review. Program sponsors are required to keep all documentation on site for 5 years plus the current program year. Reimbursement system. Reimbursements are based on national data in which programs are compensated equally for various meals. These reimbursements range from 38 cents to $4.25, which clearly does not cover the entire cost of food service. It simply offsets a portion. Civil rights. In accordance with federal civil rights law and United States Department of Agriculture, USDA, civil rights regulations and policies, this institution is prohibited from discriminating on the basis of race, color, national origin, sex, including gender identity and sexual orientation, disability, age, or reprisal or retaliation for prior civil rights activity. Program information may be made available in languages other than English. Persons with disabilities who require alternative means of communication to obtain program information, example Braille, large print, audio tape, American Sign Language, should contact the responsible state or local agency that administers the program or USDA's Target Center at 202-720-2600, voice and TTY, or contact USDA through the Federal Relay Service at 800-877-8339. To file a program discrimination complaint, a complainant should complete a Form AD-3027, USDA Program Discrimination Complaint Form, which can be obtained online at https://www.usda.gov/sites/files/AD3027.pdf from any USDA office by calling 866-632-9992 or by writing a letter addressed to USDA. The letter must contain the complainant's name, address, telephone number, and a written description of the alleged discriminatory action in sufficient detail to inform the Assistant Secretary for Civil Rights, ASCR, about the nature and date of an alleged civil rights violation. The completed AD-3027 form or letter must be submitted to USDA by mail, U.S. Department of Agriculture, Office of the Assistant Secretary for Civil Rights, 1400 Independence Avenue, Southwest, Washington, D.C. 20250, 9410, or fax 833-256-1665 or 202-690-7442 or email at program.intake@usda.gov. This institution is an equal opportunity provider.
Our civil rights laws date back to 1964. They guarantee equal protection for all citizens, regardless of race, nationality, gender, religion, or disability. In this training, you'll learn how to abide by these laws so the clients you serve within the Child and Adult Care Food Program are protected. We'll cover several highlights from your training manual to ensure your site knows how to best offer equal opportunity and justice for all. This training will include details on the basics of unlawful discrimination, informing the public of the program offerings and its accessibility to all, accommodating all participants regardless of barriers in language or any disabilities, and responding to and resolving civil rights complaints and violations. Let's start by talking about the basics of unlawful discrimination. Discrimination is the treatment or consideration of or making a distinction in favor or against a person based on the group, class, or category to which that person belongs. Unlawful discrimination in any form is strictly prohibited, whether a program is fully or partially federally funded. Unlawful discrimination can be intentional or unintentional, so it's important to know what the basics of unlawful discrimination are. Let's talk through some examples of unlawful discrimination. Number 1, giving one group or type of participants larger or extra helpings of food while not providing the same to other groups or types of participants. For example, serving the boys larger portions than the girls. Another example is putting boys separate from girls. Or how about failing to provide program information to all potential program participants? This includes not distributing program information in a language specific to the population of the service area, such as Spanish or Vietnamese.
Now that we've covered unlawful discrimination, let's move into Part 4, notifying the public. A great characteristic of this program is its accessibility to all. Each site must display their Injustice for All poster in a place that is easily visible to the public. This clearly displays the basics of the program and informs all consumers of their rights. Also remember that any publicly distributed information that mentions CACFP must be accompanied by the full non-discrimination statement. It's important for the community to know that your institution is an equal opportunity provider. Accommodating families' needs directly translates into overall program success. We welcome all those with disabilities to every CACFP facility. From food allergies to physical disabilities, an equal effort must be made to accommodate all. Take a moment and survey how you'd like to be treated if you were the one needing special accommodations. Respect and the Golden Rule are the best place to start and a wonderful foundation to build your facility's accommodation approach around. Anyone dealing directly with customers occupies a position of trust. Respect and dignity are the foundations of building and maintaining trust and excellent customer service. Why is this important to you? Treating customers with respect and dignity through excellent customer service saves you time and minimizes opportunities for complaints and angry customers, as well as saves your agency money and staff resources. Despite providing excellent customer service, occasionally there will be a customer who believes their civil rights have been violated. Any type of discrimination, intentional or unintentional, could result in a complaint. Everyone has a right to file a complaint regardless of how the discrimination came about. If a participant approaches you or a staff member with a complaint, try to discuss and resolve the issue by explaining your commitment to equal treatment. If that doesn't work, point them to the And Justice for All poster, which offers information on how to file a formal complaint. Now that we've completed our civil rights training, we hope you feel well equipped to serve your clients from all backgrounds. Here at Advanced Childcare, we're cheering you on and happy to support your efforts.
Income eligibility applications. IEAs are federal documents that collect identifying information like Social Security numbers, household income information, and whether a participant qualifies for government-based funding. This document is required for all participants and is necessary to determine eligibility and level. Income Eligibility Master List. Income Eligibility Master List contains all participants' level of reimbursement during the current program year. This information is necessary for proper claims submission. Daily Attendance Records. Attendance is recorded daily on the JFS 01208, which is located in each classroom on the clipboard. This information is necessary for proper claims submission. Master List Enrollment. Master List information contains all identifying information for reporting in one spreadsheet, to include the date the participant enters the program and withdrawals, if necessary. CACFP Budget. The CACFP budget is a document submitted to the Ohio Department of Education that outlines potential enrollment and scheduled operational schedules. The budget must be approved by the department in order for our program to qualify and receive reimbursement for food services. The budget allows for qualified expenses such as food for meals for children, paper products used for food service, and sanitizing agents. It does not allow for items for classroom projects, family gatherings, or staff food items. CACFP Management Plan. The CACFP Management Plan outlines our leadership, management, and support staff, as well as our procurement facilities. The plan documents our licensing, compliance, and continuing education efforts to provide a nonprofit and ethical food program. Food Procurement Procedures. Food procurement procedures are the detail involved in how, why, and where we purchase food for the meals we provide. Regulations insist we provide high-quality, healthy meals to all program participants. Inventory. Inventory relates to every item procured for food service, from meal items to refuse can liners. Inventory must be reported at the completion of the program year to the Ohio Department of Education. Infant menus. Infant menus are different from the basic menu posted for all to see. Infant menus are basic with all available items in the associated categories for all enrolled students. Based on the parents' consent and direction, infants are fed individualized meals consistent with their developmental needs. The results of the meals are then recorded on the infant meal count form and submitted to the agency for reimbursement. Milk requirements. Infant, 40 ounces of milk per infant per week. Toddler, 40 ounces of milk per toddler per week. Preschool, 60 ounces of milk per preschooler per week. School age, 40 ounces of milk per school ager in school, 80 ounces of milk per school ager out of school. The importance of milk cannot be understated for healthy growing bodies. It is extremely important for children to digest the appropriate milk for their age. For our participation in the CACFP program, it is extremely crucial. At the end of the day, we can provide the healthiest, most tasty meal out there. And if we do not serve the appropriate and required amount of milk, we cannot legally get reimbursement for that meal. So while we understand that children may only want a sip of milk, or they may only want, 1/2 of a cup, we must serve the appropriate amount per age group in order to get reimbursement for that meal. It may sound silly, there may be issues, but this is why we require a doctor's note for any sort of milk substitution or anything like that, because we have to show that we are providing that 1% or whole milk to every child at every meal, because it's extremely important for their growth and for our ability to continue to participate in the CACFP program. Please serve the required amount of milk. Child care licensing violations. CACFP participation is based on our program being in good standing. Licensing violations can and will inhibit our ability to participate in the CACFP. Abuse and neglect. You are a mandated reporter. During your initial training, the ODJFS Child Care Orientation video explains this requirement of all child care staff members. During your ODJFS Child Abuse 1-hour overview or your 6-hour, 3-hour management training, it is also explained that you are a mandated reporter of suspected child abuse/neglect. In our handbooks, both employee and program, it also explains this mandate. All people who work with children, regardless of the agency or capacity, are mandated reporters and should do just that. Report suspicions of abuse or neglect to the area agency. If you cannot Google the number, report your suspicions to the local police department and they will connect you with the appropriate agency. You may not use "I wasn't aware" as an excuse. There are multiple posters in every building with specific instructions.
Child abuse and neglect are reported in the United States each year, and on average, 5 children die as a result of maltreatment every day. Child abuse can happen to anyone, anywhere. It occurs at every socioeconomic level, across ethnic and cultural lines, within all religions, at all levels of education. Reporting abuse saves lives. In the state of Missouri, certain occupational groups, including child care providers, social workers, teachers, and medical professionals, are mandated reporters. Mandated reporters are mandated by the law to report any known or suspected child abuse or neglect. It is important to note that child abuse and neglect is considered any act or failure to act on the part of a person which results in serious physical or emotional harm, sexual abuse, exploitation, or death. The 4 main types of child abuse are physical abuse, sexual abuse, emotional abuse, and neglect. Physical abuse is any deliberate physical injury inflicted on a child that is the most common form of child abuse. In addition to physical injuries such as wounds, bruises, burns, and fractures, other warning signs may include a fear of being touched, physical aggression, poor self-esteem, or other extreme behaviors. Sexual abuse is any sexual behavior or sexual act forced upon a child by an adult or older youth. Indicators of sexual abuse vary. Some warning signs may include an unusual knowledge about sex, acting out sexually, or fear of men or women, unstable emotions, or difficulty sitting or walking. Emotional abuse involves non-physical behavior that negatively affects a child's emotional or mental state. This type of abuse can include insults, verbal threats, put-downs, and other tactics that can make the child feel threatened, degraded, and unsafe. Warning signs may include delays in physical, emotional, or intellectual development, speech disorders, extreme behaviors, or suicide attempts. Neglect occurs when a parent or caregiver fails to provide a child with basic needs, such as food, shelter, education, medical care, or supervision. Warning signs may include soiled clothing, poor hygiene, untreated medical issues, signs of hunger, and poor nutrition, withdrawal from others, or low self-esteem. If you suspect a child is suffering from child abuse or neglect, a report should be made immediately to the 24-hour, 7 days a week Child Abuse and Neglect Hotline at 392-3738.
Hot and cold temperatures. Hot foods must be served at a minimum 135 degrees or above. Cold foods must be kept at 41 degrees or below. Refrigeration of food. When food is refrigerated, it must be correctly labeled with the item, date and time prepared, date and time to discard, and must be safely sealed for holding at temperatures of 41 degrees or below. Components must be labeled the same but will hold longer than a prepared meal. Hold prepared meals for a maximum of 72 hours and components for a maximum of 1 week.
Foodborne illness, or food poisoning, is an infection caused by contaminated foods. It can cause several symptoms such as stomach cramps, fever, nausea, vomiting, and even death. The occurrence of more cases of a foodborne illness than would normally be expected in a specific area or group of people over a given period of time is called an outbreak. Foodborne illness outbreaks lead to many civil lawsuits, economic losses, and establishment closings. In food retail and restaurants, all food handlers must be responsible to ensure food safety standards to protect customers from foodborne illnesses. A key role in preventing foodborne illness is the restaurant's person in charge, or PIC. This designated person must be knowledgeable and responsible for food safety practices anytime the facility is in operation. Food safety practices are very important because they reduce the risk factors for foodborne illnesses and outbreaks. The PIC needs to ensure that employees are properly trained in their specific food handling duties. Germs that cause foodborne illness are on your hands. This is why poor hand washing and poor personal hygiene is the leading cause of foodborne illness. Washing your hands thoroughly is critical for preventing you from spreading germs to your customers, so let's wash them. First, you want to wet your hands with warm water. Apply plenty of soap and begin to lather by rubbing your palms together out of the stream of water. Don't forget between your fingers, the backs of your hands, your thumbs, wrists, fingertips, and under your nails. You should spend at least 15 seconds making a good lather. Once you are covered in soap, rinse well with warm water. Then dry with a paper towel. Lastly, turn off the water using the paper towel. You should wash your hands after you touch your face, nose, or scratch an itch, crack eggs, handle any raw meat or touch any surfaces or equipment that was used with raw meat, including cracking eggs, sneezing or coughing, handling trash or dirty dishes, before and after putting on new gloves, touching animals, using chemicals, smoking or taking a break. If you're unsure you need to wash your hands anyway. You can never be too safe. Food handlers must wash their hands both in the bathroom and again upon entering the kitchen in the designated hand-washing sink. Never use designated hand-washing sinks to wash foods or utensils because you can cross-contaminate them. Remember that hand washing is the most important food safety tool you can use to prevent spreading germs, so use it well. Besides having good personal hygiene, employees must follow good manufacturing practices when handling foods. One of the most important things you can do to prevent the spread of foodborne illness is to not touch ready-to-eat foods with your bare hands. Always use a utensil or gloved hands to handle these items. When preparing pizza, ingredients may be touched with bare hands before the pizza goes to the oven. However, after removing the pizza from the oven, utensils or gloved hands must be used. Don't forget, always wash your hands when changing tasks before you put on gloves. Wearing hair or beard nets, an apron, And gloves are important to reduce the risk of cross-contamination because it avoids the spreading of germs from workers into foods. These items may be worn while preparing food, but must be removed before entering the restroom. Gloves must always be changed after touching raw animal foods, garbage, walls, floor, cleaning supplies, or objects that are not clean. Food handlers must not wear artificial fingernails, bracelets, or rings with stones. Plain band wedding rings are able to be worn. Other unsecured jewelry must be removed because they might fall into foods. Employees must always wash hands after scratching their skin to avoid possible contamination of food or utensils. Cuts and abrasions on skin must always be properly cleaned and covered with a clean gauze, Band-Aid, or other type of bandage. And remember, never try to catch a knife when it is falling. Being sick while handling food is one of the worst food safety practices. When you aren't feeling well while handling food, or being in a place where food is, you can greatly increase the chance of spreading your germs to your customers. Viruses, bacteria, and fungi can be passed through food and may potentially make dozens of people sick. E. coli 0157H7, Salmonella, Shigella, norovirus, and hepatitis A are examples of diseases that can be transmitted by contaminated food. If you have vomiting, diarrhea, jaundice, fever with sore throat, or an infected wound on your hands or arms, you should not work with food while sick, and cannot be near any food handling areas until you have been symptom-free for 24 hours. Inform the person in charge that you don't feel well. They may either send you home or assign you to different work like cashier, table bussing, stocking canned or packaged foods, non-food cleaning, or maintenance duties. Food establishments must meet the minimum standards for the sanitary design and have a layout that favors an adequate product flow. Facilities should be kept clean and organized, have well-maintained restrooms with operating hand sinks, and have signs saying that employees must wash hands before returning to work. Facilities should have segregated food preparation areas and areas with controlled access to prevent cross-contamination from outside. Smoking is prohibited inside of food establishments and must be only allowed in designated outside areas away from food production areas. Food establishments have a lot of important equipment that needs to be well maintained to avoid malfunction. Refrigerators must keep food of an internal temperature of 41 degrees Fahrenheit, and freezers must keep food frozen solid. Heat sanitizing dish machines must have water at 180 degrees Fahrenheit to sanitize dishes, pans, pots, and utensils, which must reach 160 degrees Fahrenheit on their surface. And low-temperature dish machines must have proper sanitizer levels. Employees must ensure that equipment is functioning properly. In case of malfunction, the person in charge must be informed. Sanitizer buckets with towels must always be available to employees, as well as hand wash stations, so food handlers can easily wash their hands when necessary. Clean and dirty equipment and utensils should always be kept separate to avoid cross-contamination of the dirty to the clean. Having your food handler card is required while at work, and you must always keep it available. Those who do not have a food handler card should not handle food or drinks. Simple! This applies to hosts of restaurants who answer phone calls and seat guests, but do not serve food or drinks. While in the work environment, you should be respectful to everybody. Showing respect for one another will make the working environment pleasant for everybody and encourage good teamwork. You will be part of a business. Think of it as a machine that has many different parts that all move together to produce a single outcome or product. Every piece of the machine can represent a different person in a kitchen. Every person works together to produce food for customers. If one person in the kitchen isn't doing their job correctly, it will affect the food that is made. Any problems, questions, or concerns should be communicated to the person in charge or to fellow employees when appropriate. If we all work together, communicate with one another, do our job correctly, and work respectfully with one another, the workplace will be a better place for everybody. Using a thermometer is the only way to ensure food is held correctly and cooked to the proper temperature. Therefore, verifying if a thermometer is properly measuring the temperature of foods is extremely important to ensure food safety. There are several types of thermometers that can be used to verify food temperature. However, probe or stem type thermometers are the most common and are the only ones that can measure internal food temperature. They need to be verified to ensure they are accurately calibrated routinely and every time after being dropped. The recommended way to verify if a food probe thermometer is properly working is to use the ice point method. Food handlers must fill a container with ice, preferably crushed, and then add tap water to just below the top of the ice. Swirl or let the ice water sit for a few minutes to allow the temperature to stabilize. Put the thermometer probe into water while avoiding the sides and bottom of the cup. Hold the thermometer for 30 seconds, and the temperature should read 32 degrees Fahrenheit. If the thermometer does not read between 30 degrees Fahrenheit and 34 degrees Fahrenheit, recalibrate or discard the thermometer. Quality food in, quality food out. You want to be sure the food you serve to your customers is safe to eat. Food products should meet quality standards and be properly stored, especially items that need to be refrigerated. Food products to be used in restaurants must be from an approved source and always be within their expiration date. To ensure proper storing and rotating, the food that has been in storage longest should be the next food used. Regarding temperature, food handlers must always measure the temperature of the foods to ensure they haven't entered the danger zone where bacteria thrive. TCS stands for Time, Temperature Control for Safety, and these types of foods need to be kept under refrigeration or hot holding. TCS foods must only be received and kept at 41 degrees Fahrenheit, with a few exceptions. Milk may be received at 45 degrees Fahrenheit, but must be placed in 41 degrees Fahrenheit refrigeration immediately. Eggs may be received and stored at 45 degrees Fahrenheit. Live shellfish, like oysters, mussels, and clams, may be received at 45 degrees Fahrenheit. Frozen foods must always be received frozen and kept in similar fashion. Beverages and ice are also food items that must be properly handled. Newly received foods should be inspected, documented, and quickly put into proper storage. Foods inspected upon receiving to be above their appropriate temperature should be immediately rejected. In addition, foods with the following characteristics must also be rejected: cans that appear to be swollen, expanded, or dented; cardboard boxes with watermarks showing evidence of thawing of frozen foods; frozen foods with water crystals showing evidence of thawing and refreezing on frozen foods; any spoiled food such as moldy cheese or bread or sour milk; expired food products and foods without labels; food or packaging with signs of pests, holes, or rust. Food products must be properly stored to avoid possible cross-contamination. Overall, food must be stored on shelves placed at least 6 inches off the floor. Coolers and refrigerators must have internal thermometers, which should be easily accessible and placed in the warmest area of the unit. Raw animal products, such as meat, fish, and poultry, must be stored below or away from ready-to-eat foods. Date marking is required for ready-to-eat foods opened or prepared in the establishment and held refrigerated for more than 24 hours. These foods must be marked with the date, either of preparation or expiration, and be consumed or discarded within 7 days, including the day of preparation. Ready-to-eat products such as cooked rice, sliced deli meat, chicken and tuna salad, cooked vegetables, and soups must be held at 41 degrees or less for the duration of no more than 7 days. Time temperature control for safety foods, or TCS foods, are any foods that have a specific shelf life and must be kept under refrigeration for safety. TCS foods that are expired or kept under unacceptable temperatures or past the allotted time must be discarded. When dealing with TCS foods, food handlers must understand the temperature danger zone. This zone is the range of temperatures that allows bacteria to grow quickly in foods. Some of these bacteria can cause illness if the product is left in the danger zone, or if the food is not properly cooked. The temperature danger zone is 41 degrees Fahrenheit to 135 degrees Fahrenheit. Also, when food is not cooked to the required temperature, bacteria in food persists, which may cause foodborne illness. Therefore, food handlers must always keep the temperature danger zone in mind when cooking, cooling, thawing, or chilling foods. Common TCS foods include raw animal products such as beef, pork, fish, seafood, and poultry, dairy products such as milk, sour cream, ice cream, and some cheeses, eggs, garlic in oil, some cut foods such as melons, tomatoes, and leafy greens, and cooked rice, potatoes, beans, vegetables, and grains. Dry foods that can be stored at room temperature are not considered TCS foods. Proper cooking is an effective way to control food safety. Cooking kills most of the microorganisms that can cause illness. Raw animal products need to be cooked to the following internal temperatures measured in the thickest part with a probe thermometer. Chicken, 165 degrees Fahrenheit for 15 seconds. Ground and cut up meats, 155 degrees Fahrenheit for 15 seconds. Steak, pork, fish, and eggs, 145 degrees Fahrenheit for 15 seconds. After foods are cooked to the proper temperature, they need to be handled safely to ensure that no bare hand contact or cross-contamination occurs afterward. Cooked products must never be stored next to raw animal products. Although undercooking foods increase the chance of foodborne illness, establishments may provide the option for customers to request having undercooked foods, such as rare meats, sunny-side-up eggs, and raw oysters if a consumer advisory notice is declared on the menu. Holding foods at their proper temperature is a breeze. Hot foods ready to be served hot should be and stay hotter than the temperature danger zone to keep the germs from growing, 135 degrees Fahrenheit or higher. Regularly check the temperature of the foods and occasionally stir the foods to mix the temperature all around. Foods which are ready to be served cold, they should stay cold, colder than the temperature danger zone, below 41 degrees Fahrenheit. Cooling and reheating foods are some of the riskiest parts of food safety because they are traveling through the temperature danger zone. Because of this, foods need to be watched carefully. Okay, maybe not watched, but monitored, ideally with a log, to be sure it is cooling down or heating up within a certain amount of time. Too much time in the temperature danger zone allows the germs within the food to grow and multiply. Foods need to be cooled in a two-step process. The food needs to cool from 135 degrees Fahrenheit to 70 degrees Fahrenheit within 2 hours. Food then needs to cool to 41 degrees Fahrenheit or below within 6 hours total. Best ways to cool foods: placing uncovered foods in shallow pans, using an ice water bath, using ice paddles, placing food container in a blast chiller. When reheating cooled food, be sure to move quickly through the danger zone. Foods must be reheated to 165 degrees Fahrenheit within 2 hours. Do not use hot holding equipment to reheat foods. Best ways to reheat foods: on the stove, in the oven, in a microwave. Placing frozen foods on a counter at room temperature is an unsafe method of thawing because the outside of the food risks entering the temperature danger zone while waiting for the inside to thaw. Best ways to thaw frozen foods: in the refrigerator, submerged under cold running water, in the microwave if cooking immediately, as a part of the cooking process. Cross-contamination is when germs from one place hitchhike to a new place. They can travel on utensils, cutting boards, and food handler hands. Cross-contamination may occur when the same utensils are used to place raw meats on a grill and again used to move the cooked food off the grill, or when raw meat and raw vegetables are cut on the same cutting board. Raw foods and cooked foods must always be kept separate. A good food safety practice to prevent cross-contamination includes using color-coded cutting boards for raw meat, vegetables, cooked meats, raw poultry, seafood, and cheese and breads. This helps to prevent cross-contamination, as well as segregating utensils for each product, such as tongs and spatulas, used for cooked products only. After cutting foods in their respective cutting boards, the countertops and cutting boards must be cleaned and sanitized before its next use to avoid any possible cross-contamination. There are a few different types of food hazards that you'll need to watch out for because they can all be dangerous to your customers. Food hazards can be biological, physical, and chemical, such as cleaning products. Biological hazards are germs, such as bacteria and viruses, that are on food that can make people sick. Some germs can be on the food naturally, such as raw meats or unwashed produce. Germs can also be spread to foods by unwashed hands and dirty surfaces. Physical hazards are any object that shouldn't be in the food. They can be naturally occurring from the food, such as bone and eggshells, or things such as hair, jewelry, and parts from equipment like screws and pieces of glass. Chemical hazards can come from any chemical products you use in the kitchen, which can splash or drip or somehow contaminate into food. Cleaning and sanitizing your dirty dishes and utensils is a very important food safety process. Cleaning is the removal of grease and debris. Sanitizing reduces the number of germs to safe levels. If this is not done properly, microorganisms can contaminate foods. Equipment can be cleaned and sanitized in dishwashing machines that use chemical sanitizers or heat. Each machine has a data plate that explains how to properly operate the machine. Make sure it is working properly by measuring the temperature or chemical used for sanitizing. Check the temperature using a waterproof memory thermometer or temperature-sensitive tape, and check chemical strength with a test strip. If manually washing dishes, a 3-compartment sink is necessary. Start by pre-washing or scraping dirty equipment. Then use the first basin for washing dirty equipment with hot soapy water, at least 110 degrees Fahrenheit, to remove bits of food and grease. If the equipment is not properly cleaned, or if there is soap on the equipment, the sanitizer will not be as effective. The second basin is for rinsing to remove all traces of detergent and food particles. The third basin is used to sanitize the items. If using quat, you will need to check the instructions on the sanitizer bottle. For chlorine, use 50 to 100 parts per million for 30 seconds. Fill the basin with water and sanitizer to the specified temperature and concentration and check it with a test strip. Be sure to soak equipment for the required contact time. Lastly, place the sanitized equipment on the clean drain board to air dry. Never rinse after sanitizing or dry with a towel. This can contaminate the items you just washed. Remember, the proper sequence for manual washing is to pre-wash, wash, rinse, sanitize, and air dry. After handling dirty dishes, always wash your hands in a hand-washing sink before you handle clean or washed dishes. Keeping your facility clean is important. When cleaning and sanitizing food contact surfaces that cannot fit in the 3-compartment sink, such as tables and large equipment, still follow a wash, rinse, and sanitize procedure. It is also important to have a sanitizer bucket available whenever open food is present. The sanitizer must be kept at proper concentration, verified with a test strip. Keep a cloth in the bucket and use it to wipe down food contact surfaces. Prepare a new bucket when the concentration is too low or the liquid is dirty. Don't forget, cleaners and sanitizers are also a food hazard, so they must be used properly and also stored safely so they do not come into contact with any foods. Chemicals must be labeled and need to be stored away from the food prep areas where they can't spill or drip onto any food products. No pests allowed. Your workplace should be pest-free with no signs of any ants, flies, cockroaches, mice, rats, birds, etc. The best thing to do is not make them feel welcome in the first place. Don't give them a way in, don't give them food, and don't give them a place to hide and call home. But if you find evidence of pests inside your facility, like mouse droppings on a floor, a single dead cockroach in the corner, gnaw or chew marks on any food containers, you have a pest problem. When you think you have a pest problem, don't buy your own pesticides from the store that are labeled for household use only. You need to consult with a licensed pest control company to take care of the pest infestation in a safe and approved way. Food truck vendors must follow good manufacturing practices and follow safety rules set by the health district. The same rules and practices mentioned in the previous modules must be followed by food handlers in mobile establishments. In order to operate a mobile establishment, the vehicle and driver must be properly licensed, and food handlers must have their cards available at all times. Food services, equipment in general, and utensils must be properly sanitized and segregated based on type and state of the product and stored as mentioned in the previous modules. The temperature must be closely monitored, especially when receiving food products, and the thermometers must be verified. Before initiating operations, personnel must ensure that refrigerators are properly working at compliant temperatures to avoid compromising the storage of TCS foods. Non-food contact surfaces must be smooth, non-absorbent, and cleaning friendly. There must be dedicated hand washing and food preparation sinks. Fresh and wastewater tanks must have compatible dimensions according to the volume of food that is being prepared daily. Trucks must have proper ventilation, and air filters must be kept clean and in good condition. Mobile establishment owners must ensure that backup generators are properly functional. Ensuring food safety must be the caterer's top priority. Catering and restaurant food safety practices are similar and must be followed according to the health district rules. Food handlers must have their food handler safety cards available at all times, and critical temperatures mentioned in the previous modules must be respected when storing and preparing foods. Foods must be transported in appropriate containers that hold proper temperatures. Dedicated containers must be used for raw animal products to avoid any possible cross-contamination. If not using time as a public health control with a written plan, the temperature of foods must be checked at regular intervals to ensure that it doesn't enter the temperature danger zone. Menus must contain consumer advisory if necessary. Equipment and utensils used to store food and serve customers must be properly cleaned and sanitized and stored. When needed, caterers must ensure that power sources or generators are functional and all food contact surfaces are clean and well maintained.
Thank you for attending the 2024 annual CACFP training for Victorum Learning Center. Once again, my name is Lauren Nelson. I'm the Director of Operations for Victorum Learning Center. Please feel free to send me an email with any questions or concerns or in need of any clarification at laurennelson.vlc@gmail.com.